One. Hey folks, Ty Cohen here from KindleCashFlow.com and KCFLive.com. I'm excited because I've got someone that I've spoken to. Mike, it seems like we've spoken a lot lately. Actually, a lot this year. I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about that earlier, man. But I've got somebody who, you talk to people every once in a while, and with Zoom, speaking to someone, I'm going to say electronically or over like the internet, has become a little bit more normal over the last couple of years because of the pandemic and things like that. But you're someone where even though we're not close, I still feel the energy and I feel the genuineness in you. So I really love the fact that you're open enough to talk about what you're doing about children's with regards to children's books, talking about your journey, talking about your process. And this is something that a lot of people are excited about. I sent out a survey, as I was telling you a few minutes ago, literally just a couple of minutes before we jumped on this thing. We already have about 14 to 15 questions that came in. So people want to know about children's books. So before we jump into this thing, man, who is Michael Joshua? Like, what's your background in a nutshell?
My background, as far as when I actually worked for a day-to-day paycheck, I was a controller, financial controller for a number of years. So accounting is kind of my gig back then, but now all I do are the Kindle books.
Got it. Mike, you are I didn't realize that. I know we may have spoke about that before, but I probably forgot. But you're about the third accountant that I've interviewed from the group.
Huh.
Did you know that?
I think you mentioned before that you had interviewed another one right before me, but you didn't say who it was, so I don't know who it was.
Yeah, it was Lindsay Bremer, right? And then I interviewed an awesome young lady from the UK who also is in the accounting industry, right? So there's something there. I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to start targeting accountants for Kindle publishing.
Maybe we're just tired of numbers. We want to do something more creative.
That could be it also, right?
You start getting creative with the numbers, it's called cooking the books.
Right. Oh, and that's a whole nother story right there, right? There's a lot of politicians that are in big trouble and corporations that are in big trouble for that.
Yeah, right? They don't get in trouble until way after the fact, though.
After the fact, right? Yeah. So there you go. But man, so Michael, so now I know that you are publishing some incredible children's books, and you're going to actually be talking about that at KCF Live. You have a really cool presentation that I've had the pleasure of taking a look at. I actually normally when I'm going through a PowerPoint and it's like my own PowerPoint or Marty or Josh's PowerPoints, and now they're hearing this for the first time, I'm just like rushing through them. Boom, 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 boom. But with yours, I was actually looking at each slide and I'm like, that is incredible. That's fascinating. That's interesting. So I can't wait to hear you kind of elaborate on each of those points that you have there. So Michael will be at KCF Live talking about Kindle publishing as it relates to publishing children's books. So did you first get started with publishing children's books, or?
When I first started, I followed somebody who had sold a program teaching how to do erotica, and I did like half a dozen books. And gotcha. It didn't do it for me. So then I started getting into kids' books, and I've done kids' books pretty much all along since that point.
I got it. So it didn't do it for you. No pun intended there. But he went totally the opposite way, right? Like that's totally switching things up. Right. Maybe if you went into Christianity or something like that, that would be.
Well, I have some of that too, but that's under my own name.
There you go. Okay, awesome. So children's books, man, like what made you say, let me go in that direction? Was there anything that sparked that idea, or?
I don't know. I think because I still wanted to do books, but the first jab at it didn't work. Right. And so I decided to try to do some of those. And, I've got grandkids now. I didn't have at the time, but I've always kind of looked at kids' books. And so it just kind of spoke to me. So I just stuck with it.
One of the things, the last time I spoke to you, and this wasn't in an interview, this was a week before last or a week before that when we were talking about your process. You had said something to me. You said, Ty, there's probably about 25 or 30 words or so in some of these books.
Yeah, there's not much.
I was like you don't think about that, right? Like, and I was like, wow, he's right. After looking at a couple of other books on Amazon. After you and I had gotten off of that call, I went in and I flipped through some of them. And then we still have some of our kids' books from when our kids were younger in a box here. So I went in and I looked at some of those books, and you're totally right. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find a children's book that has maybe 100 words in it of the format that you're creating, the type that you're creating. Right.
Correct. And I do the nonfiction ones as well. I do those informational type books, and those only have about 1,000 words, which is still way less than any kind of a romance novel. But the illustrated books, yeah, you're done in 150, 200 words. You've got a book.
Got it. Now, speaking of that, how long does it typically take you to craft a book?
When I start, I will sit down, like while my wife and I are watching TV, and I just start sketching out the pages, and I write down what the setting's going to be, what the characters are going to say, and then I number the pages, so I know how many pages I need.
Okay.
And I draft out the whole storyline along with the settings, and then I can take that, and within a week I'll have a book.
Wow. Okay.
Now I'll do about 10 pages a day once I have the storyline drawn out.
Yeah.
I'll design about 10 pages a day.
Okay. So now you have the story already written out, and then you're just plugging that into the pages after you design it. Got it. Okay. And Michael's going to be talking about, he's actually going to be sharing some of this on screen at KCF Live, so that you guys who are more visual like me, like I actually need to see things before I totally get it. He's going to be sharing that. Mike, so we just learned that while you're watching TV with your wife, you're actually not watching TV and paying attention to what she's doing.
Hey, cut that out of here.
Right. You're actually, you're drawing up ideas, which is just beautiful, though. It's beautiful. Where do you get the inspiration for some of your stories?
I don't know. You could just look and see what's on Amazon. Yeah. You can pick out any of the authors that are doing a lot of illustrated. I've not ever looked at Pete the Cat, but there's a bunch of Pete the Cat books. I've not ever looked at his, but I've mentioned before this Sammy Bird character. I've bought a couple of those books and looked at them. So, they're pretty standards. There's always the one that's for time to go to bed. There's always, all the Halloween, Christmas. You could do all those occasion books. Talking about bullies. Talking about going somewhere, you go on a trip, going to visit friends. You can use anything. And if you don't have any inspiration, just start looking through Amazon. You find a book, the title will be enough to usually give you an idea.
Yeah. And, like a lot of the examples that you just gave, right? We're going on a trip, we're going somewhere, dealing with bullies, using the bathroom, right? How to go potty, stuff like that. Those things are perennial. Like, they've always been around, and they'll continue to be around, right? When I was a kid, I remember seeing those books, and I'm sure way before that, and they'll continue to be around. So I like the fact that they're evergreen. And then even some of the holidays, right? So you talked about Halloween and Christmas, and those things are always going to roll around there, right? So your process for developing like characters, because we talked about, you and I had a call, and you were talking about this animal. I forget what it was, a bug that eats grass, right?
Oh yeah, army worms.
Army worms.
Army worms, yes.
And like turning that into a character.
You could do that.
And having a whole cast of army worms as characters. I thought that
was
now
great. I probably wouldn't do it with army worms, only because there's not enough of a shape to the character.
Yeah.
Because it's just a worm. But you could use an ant.
Yeah.
You could use any animal pretty much, and just get it in a bunch of different poses, and you're good to go.
You're good to go. All right. Perfect. Hey, Mike, I got a couple of questions here that I want to read off from some of our folks that actually submitted questions. And if you haven't had a chance to go in and submit a question yet, remember, Mike's going to be back for KCF Live. You can go in and submit your question for him by going to kindlecashflow.com/children. So just children, no S at the end. So children. And let's see, what do we have here? We got a couple of more questions that actually came in. So I'm going to start at the top here. Let's see. All right. So the first one that comes in here is it says, when you draw from ideas about subject, what do you draw from ideas regarding subject matter for children's books? So basically, I guess what she's trying to say is, where do you get your ideas for different children's books?
I look at what's already on Amazon.
There you go.
You can look at the bestsellers list in almost any category and find similar themes. Like I mentioned before, it's time to go to bed. You're going to find those all over with a whole bunch of different characters and a different message. And so, it's a solid idea. So just build on that. And any of us that have had kids and or grandkids, you know what you go through when you try to get them to go to bed. So just put that in the book.
Yeah. And the thing about that, Mike, now that you mentioned that, like, parents or grandparents, you usually don't just buy one book on that subject, right?
Right.
There's at least a minimum of 2.
Right.
So there you go. And typically, if there's more kids in a household, right, you're buying those books over and over again, and different characters and different authors and publishers come into play. So the next question, this is actually from Nancy Shockey. She asked, I have a group of animals. So she's got rabbits. She's got a 3-legged cat that each go through an adventure. As they go through the adventure, they learn a kinder, gentler truth about the situation. Could each adventure be its own mini chapter? Is that possible, or would that be too choppy? I'm writing for preschoolers.
I probably wouldn't do that, but I'm not the authority really on that, because the market's going to tell you if it works. I wouldn't do that because I like to stick with one character and build it out so that, like right now with my illustrated, I've got about a dozen, and I've actually built out the character enough that I think you might even know what the character will say next or how the character will respond. And if you're throwing a bunch of different things in there together, it's going to be hard to really build your characters out.
Yeah. So you're splitting that attention, right? So she's got a rabbit, she's got a 3-legged cat, and they're splitting that attention. I think that's super smart. So what she could do is she could have a book where each character is that main person, right? Especially with like the 3-legged cat that she's got there, or the rabbit. There's uniqueness in that.
Right.
Very cool. All right. So the next question that we have here comes from, this is from Rowena. She says, do you need a lot of drawings and illustrations to get started?
I like to have my book be about 40 pages from start to finish. Okay. Some of those pages will be, your title page, your copyright, your more books by, and, your lead magnet opt-in. So some of those you don't have to have images on, but all the rest of them I would have images. So here's an example. If you're doing, let's say you're doing a book about ants, and you put them in the anthill, you've got them in the home. Well, you have a kitchen. You only have to have one picture of the kitchen, and you can have the scenes in the kitchen.
Got it.
You only have to have one picture of the bedroom, and you can have the scenes in the bedroom. So it kind of depends on how you lay out your story, which is why I lay out my story first, and then I know what scenes I need for each one.
Yep. So you're laying the framework first, right? That foundation, and then you can go from there. Super smart. Now, as far as the second part to her question is, like, is it easy to find like the illustrative art, the drawings? Is it easy to find someone that can do this for you? I know you're going to talk about your process during Kindle Castro Live, but what do you think off the top of your head here?
I think it is easy to find an illustrator. Now, whether or not you want to pay what they want is something else.
Yeah.
You got to be careful. I've got a relative that actually is a graphic artist, and she was telling me how much she would charge to do an image. It's like, you're out of your mind. Nobody can afford to pay that.
Yeah.
But I have another friend that's doing kids books, and he gets his images for like $10 a page, which to me isn't bad. It's more than I would pay, but that's not bad to get the image done. So I would look at Upwork. I'd look at Fiverr. I'd try to see if you can find somebody that gets the same vision as you, because you need to be able to get that across.
Yeah, and that's important, right? So being able to take your idea, your vision, and then have someone else be able to see that.
Right.
And then turn it into this visual form.
Right.
So Fiverr is a great outlet, right? The thing with Fiverr is you can go in, you can find people, but you have to do some work. You're going to put some work in on your end. Upwork is another one. I prefer Fiverr for this type of thing, finding illustrative artists. And like you, so my wife has a friend who published a children's book a couple of years ago, and some of the quotes and the bids that she was getting for like illustrative work was insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And she was going, after like professional artists. And I'm like, that's the wrong direction, because those guys are really going to try to kill you. You need to go over to Fiverr. You need to go to Upwork or Guru. And that way you could find something that's a lot more reasonable.
Right.
All right. So, and Mike, we know that you do a lot of your own content, right? So when it comes to the designs, the images, you go in and create your own. Super simple process. All right. So the next question is, so she says, greetings. The 6 to 9-year-old category kind of feels like those who make it into the New York bestsellers list are being promoted more. How do we break into this group if we're not a well-known name or publishing house? And I think this is something that kind of fakes people out big time. No matter how much we talk about it, like, screw if someone's on a New York Times bestsellers list, right?
You don't need to be there. Yeah. You don't need to be there to make plenty of money. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, that list can only support so many people, right? But there's tons of other people that are not on the list that are doing extremely well.
Correct.
Right. So I think we kind of get in our own head when it comes to that. There's so many different things that you got to be careful about not being faked out on.
Well, we focus on the hurdles.
Yes.
And if you stop focusing on the hurdles, you'll find out that you're already over it.
Yep. So talk about that for a second. How did you do that yourself? Like, was there ever a point where you kind of doubted something was going to be as easy as it is now for you?
Yeah, especially when I started the Illustrated, because I'm not a graphic designer. I do my own covers. I've been doing my own covers forever, but doing something with kids' books, that's kind of a different ball game. And being able to take a page and build it into something that really works, I thought it was going to be beyond me, but I found out it's not. It's easier than you can imagine.
Yeah. And when you showed me your process, I kind of realized that, right? Because you were slicing and dicing, man. You were in there, as a chef would. You were cooking up different images. And I kind of said to you too, Mike, I said, Mike, well, you're a creative guy. That's what I assumed when I'm looking at this stuff. And then to hear you say that this is something that you learned is kind of shocking to me, because you're great at it.
Thanks.
Right. So what did that process look like? Is that something that took you months or years to learn, or did it just take trial and error?
It is some trial and error, but I have used a program called GIMP, which is a free. It's kind of like the poor man's Photoshop. It pretty much does everything Photoshop does, but it's free. It's open source. And I had used it when I designed T-shirts several years ago, but I got away from it. So it is challenging when you first open it. Okay. But I went and bought a training program off of Udemy, and I paid like $20, and I've gone through maybe the first 6 modules.
Oh wow!
You don't even have to know that much about GIMP to make this work.
Yeah. And you know what that teaches you too, Mike? What that says to me is, when you're ready to make something work, you'll find a way.
Yes.
Right? When you're ready to make it work, you'll find a way. And if you're not ready to make it work, you'll find an excuse.
Right. Yeah. I smoked for years and then I quit.
There you go.
Yeah,
right. That's it. So same, you see people, my mother-in-law, same thing. She smoked for years and she quit, and she got started smoking at a very early age, teens. And then she just recently quit, and she quit like this.
That's pretty much what you have to do. You just have to stop. I mean, I don't remember the date, but if you ask my wife, she could tell you the date I quit. That's how much she hated it.
But that's the same thing, right? Yep. Where you apply starting. Like you said, okay, I've never published a children's book before. I have never created a cover for a children's book before. At least I don't think you did.
Nope.
You've never created the inside pages, but you said, I'm going to figure it out. There's this program out here called GIMP. He just gave you the program. You don't even have to figure that part out, right? Because he just gave you that. It's a free program. It's equivalent to Photoshop, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I used it a couple of years ago. And then he said I went over on Udemy and I bought a $20 tutorial and went through like the first 4, 5, 6 modules and picked it up. So he's laid out that part of a process for you to a degree. Now he hasn't shared how he goes and does everything, right? We'll get to that maybe at KCF Live and afterward. But he's giving you the starting points right there. So you don't even have to figure that stuff out. So I want to jump back to the questions here. So we have, so here's the next one. So do all children's books need to have a moral to the story or teach about good morals?
I don't think they need to. It kind of lends itself to that though, because you are speaking to the kid because, well, mine are read aloud books. So the whole point is for the parent to read it to them. So you do want to kind of have something going on in there besides, them dumping their cereal on the floor.
Yeah.
But I don't think it has to, but I think it's a bonus if it does. I think you're going to have more parents hooked on the fact that they want more of your books if you bring something more to the table.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point, right? So getting the parent involved. Like when you're looking at, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a children's book that just has fun in it, right? There's just it's a fun time. That probably attracts the kid and keeps the kid. Like my son Tyler, there was a point where A Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That series, dude, we bought every single book.
We have them all here. My grandson read them. He doesn't read anything else, but he read those.
Same. That was the same thing. Like it was every single thing. And honestly, I can't tell you if there's a moral to those stories or if there's something in there. I think they may be more fun than anything, but the kids are hooked. But going back to your point, right? How do you get the parent in there as well? So if you can get the parent in there and there is the moral to the story, so now you have the parent who's actually the gatekeeper to the wallet or to the purse, and they're buying it. And now you also have the kid because there's this fun element to it. So when you're crafting your books, right, the ideas for them, are you thinking about like, how do I get the parent involved in this transaction as well? Or,
I'm not, and I think I probably don't think about that because I'm a grandpa.
Okay.
So I'm already vested. I'm already invested in it. So I'm already thinking in those terms.
Gotcha. So you're doing that without even putting the effort into it because you've been down that road already.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Super smart. All right, so next question that we have here is, how do you come up with the characters in the storyline?
Look at other books.
There we go.
I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Everybody has a book on how to get your kid to use the potty. Everybody has a book on trying to get them to go to sleep, how to eat their veggies.
Yeah.
So it's not rocket science. Just look at everything else and look at the bestsellers. They'll give you the answers to that.
They'll give you all of the research, right? And in most cases, either they've done the research or by publishing the book, the market is their research, right? Looking at the results.
Right. And as far as the storyline, all I do is I start with a scene and the character doing or saying something in whatever room of the house. And then it just builds upon itself.
Got it.
And as it builds upon itself, you get to the point that, okay, well, I've got 35 pages. Now I'm done. Wind it up.
And that's the simplicity of it, right? I think sometimes, like, that's the basis of the entire Kindle cash flow model. It is looking at your market research because that's why we start with that first. Looking at what else is selling already and what's doing well, and then how can you use that as inspiration? That's the mindset that you're coming from, right? If you look at some of these multi-billion-dollar companies, Walgreens, for example, when I worked at Walgreens Pharmacy, one of the things that I learned is Walgreens will go in and do the research, right? They'll survey like the demographic in an area. They'll look at the economic structure of that area. They'll look at what other retail outlets are in that area. And then if everything checks, they'll build a store. CVS kind of does the same, but they're more likely to build a store if a Walgreens is within a mile or so already. because they know that Walgreens is already.
I already did the homework. Slick.
Pay attention to that, right? Wherever you
yep.
see it, chances are you see a CVS, there's a Walgreens about a mile away. Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, if it works for $1 billion corporation, it can work for you. Right. So the next question, what's your average cost of creating a children's book? Is it more than the $150 that we kind of spend when publishing a regular Kindle book, or about that range, or less, or what?
It's considerably less.
Wow.
So my first illustrated book, I bought about, I think, 20 or so images of the particular character I wanted to be the main character.
Okay.
So I paid around a couple of bucks per image.
Okay.
But now, a dozen books in, I'm no longer buying that image. I already have it.
Smart.
So until I introduce a new character or a new scene or a new background, I don't have to buy anything else. So I might have to buy 1 or 2 backgrounds for the next book, and that's all, because I've already got, the main character. I've got the main character's mom, the main character's dad, the main character's grandma, but I've already done those over the first half dozen books that I bought. So the more you build, the less you have to spend. Got
it. Because you're repurposing those images.
Correct. You never have to buy those images again.
Yeah. And I think that's brilliant. Michael, you had talked about, when you and I spoke privately, you talked about where you go in and buy your images. Are you going to talk about that on KCF Live?
I'm going to mention it in passing.
Okay.
There are so many places to buy images, but I really like that particular site. But I have gotten a lot of free images from Pixabay.
Gotcha.
Like for backgrounds. And you can actually get character images there too. You just have to know how to search for them.
Got it.
And they're free.
There
so you could start off for free if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, so totally no expenses out of your pocket.
Right.
If you want to go in and do everything in a way that you're doing it,
right,
this is totally doable for anyone.
Right.
So KCF Live, guys, if you don't have your ticket, go over to kcflive.com, kcflive.com, grab your ticket. Hell, you can even get a free ticket, right? Everything's free here. So you have no excuses. You're going to get a free ticket to KCF Live. Mike's going to show you how to go in and publish your book for free. This, Mike, sometimes I'm kind of making a joke out of this, and I'm kind of making light of it, but we live in a time and we live in a country where if someone wants to do something, especially if you're in the US, man, like there's literally no limits.
Right. And it's not too late to start. I mean, I'm 66.
Yeah.
And I just started doing illustrated, and I'm in love with them. I'm just in love with them. They're so much fun to do.
I love it. The 46-year-old that's 66 there. This guy is full of surprises here, I'll tell you. All right, I love it. So, but in all seriousness, guys, there's no reason why, if this is something that you're interested in doing, right? Everything here is at your disposal. If you have the resource to watch this video, you have the resource to publish children's books.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. All right. So next question is, this one is pretty open. How do I get started? We're not going to even cover that because that's kind of an insult as to everything that we're covering here. The next one, how do you write the children's books yourself, or do you use ghostwriters? I know the answer, but I'd love to hear you.
I write my own.
Right.
Because the story is this long.
Yeah.
It's that, and that's how long their attention spans like this. So you have a story with, 1 sentence per character on a page.
Yeah.
So it's nothing. You write it yourself.
Super beautiful. Okay. Next question. Where do you get images produced for your books? We just kind of talked about that. Have you ever thought about outsourcing imagery from a designer?
No, I'm just too cheap.
Got it.
I'm just not spending my money that way.
I love it. And I love the honesty there too, right? So it's whatever works for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question. What age group do you find the easiest to publish books for?
The ones that I'm doing now are probably 4 to 7.
Gotcha. Okay.
3 to 7, something like that. Yeah.
Got it. You know, Mike, the other thing that I love about children's books is kids are always being produced, right? You're never going to run out of
Right.
kids.
Right. They're going
Someone,
to age out, but they're probably going to have another one. So
they're going to age out, right? Someone right now, as we talk, are making a brand new kid that's going to.
Don't get a picture.
Right. Don't picture that in your head. But there's literally tons of kids that are being made right now that are going to fall into whatever age group you decide to publish books for. Right? Whether it's the 4 to 7, the 7 to 11, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. There's new kids that are always going to be, you know, in the marketplace.
I got an email just this morning from, I'm assuming it's a mom, 3-year-old that really loves my book, and could they get an autographed copy?
Oh, wow.
It's like, well, you know, it's a paperback that you're going to have to buy.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't answered yet. I haven't decided whether to do that or not. Because when you're dealing with a pen name and then you're dealing with mailing something to somebody with an address on it, it's kind of sketchy whether or not you want to drop that out there.
Yeah, no, it is
interesting.
True. Yeah. But I don't know, man. That's fascinating, though. That's got to be inspiring right there, just for you to get someone to send you that email there.
Yeah.
That is
beautiful. And I get them all the time on the kids' books, all the time from the parents.
People who want you to sign a book?
They don't, not just for that, but I'll get emails that say, I missed your email the other day, so can you send me whatever was in it? I accidentally, one of them said my son was cleaning out my inbox and I think he kicked me off your list. Can you sign me back up?
That's
I mean, I get emails all the time from parents.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a while, right? Like, what does that process look like? Are you emailing your list every day, or how often are you emailing them?
Every day.
Every day. Okay.
Every day. I email them every day, and then if they don't open it that night, they get it again.
Yep.
And then if they don't open it long enough, pretty soon I drop them off the list. I move them to a list that hasn't been opened in a while, and then when I release a new book, I'll include them on the email, and if they open, then I put them back on the live list again.
So they're back. They go on a naughty list, right?
Yeah.
And then if they open it up, then they're back on.
Back in there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, what do your emails look like? Like content-wise, are there stories that are similar to the book, or is it?
Mostly, it's promoting whatever the latest book is.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, it's just that. I don't do a lot of engagement. Yep. Honestly, I want them to engage with the character in the book.
Mm-hmm. So, that's what the book is for.
Yeah. So when I'm getting ready to release a new book, I start including pages of the new book that's coming out in the email. Here's a preview, that kind of thing.
Now, are you giving them an image? Is that an image preview that you're sending them?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be either a 1-page or a 2-page spread.
Very cool. All right. So now they get to see that new character, right? Because these are people that bought the other character. You're introducing them to a new character.
Right.
All right. Got it. That's super smart. Like, that's the way you already have a built-in audience, right there, right? So why start from scratch, right? You can start from scratch, but also incorporate people that are proven buyers and proven readers. So I love that. And
you could actually take these books and, if you wanted to, build a whole nother series with a different character. Mm-hmm. Same books, same storyline, pretty much. Just change the setting, change the wording a little bit. And you could have, 3 or 4, you can have half a dozen of these different characters going on and take over more of the market. Yeah. And, you kind of talked about the last time where you literally will have an unlimited series, right? You've got like this unlimited number of books that you could publish. Right. Yeah. If you look at like Marvel Comics, I'm a huge Marvel movie fan. And they have like this unlimited number of movies and comic books. Like, they've produced thousands of different comic books that people continue to buy off of, like, think about SpiderMan. So SpiderMan, like, we all know the name SpiderMan now, but there's the Amazing Spider-Man, there's Peter Parker. These are all titles, right, for comic books. There's the Adventures of Spider-Man. There's all types of things that they've spun off into new series, which is exactly what you're talking about here. Right. So I love that. What else do we have? So all right. Do you only publish ebooks or physical books? That's the next question. I do both. Every book that I publish is also a paperback. I sell in my nonfiction books, I sell 80% paperback, 20% ebooks. Now I'm seeing that flip with the illustrated books. I'm selling more ebooks on illustrated than I am paperback, but I'm still selling the paperbacks.
Really? That's interesting.
It kind of surprised me. I don't know what that's about.
Well, if you had to take your wildest guess, what would you say it is?
Well, the ones that I sell a lot of paperbacks are informational books. They're kind of like books you get at the library.
Gotcha. Okay. Got it.
So, but these are the fun illustrated books. And I think you have more parents reading from their iPad and stuff to their kids. So that may be one.
That may be it. Isn't it amazing how like technology has changed that? Like before it would be a physical book, because again, I've had 4 children and I've never read from an iPad or from my phone to my kids, right? I've never read a book from my iPad or my tablet to my children.
And I wouldn't either, but my son does it all the time to his.
And it's normal.
He's got a full library on his iPad,
100%. It's totally normal. Like even my kids, right? They don't watch TV from the television. They watch TV from this.
Well, we watch a football game when there's a football game on that my wife likes to see because I'm not really a football fan. Yeah. But when we're watching football, our grandson will come out of his room and he's watching it on his computer. You could come out here and watch it with us. No, it's okay.
Yeah. Yep. And my son is the same way. So my son Tyler is 17, right? So the game was on yesterday. It was on this weekend. And I'm not a football fan either. I've been trying to get into it more and more because my sons are into football. But so we had a couple of people over and I put the game on, right? Just for our guests, because I know that they're football folks. And I go down to get my son and I'm like, hey, we're watching the game upstairs. And he already had it on his phone.
I know.
I'm watching it too. So, but the thing about that is technology is changing where folks are consuming now, right?
Yep. And they're diehards like me that I still have bookcases full of books.
Yeah.
I like a physical book.
Me too.
And I always will.
Yeah.
But I have read on my iPhone. I have a lot of friends that are traditionally published writers from writers groups that I was in years ago. And I started somebody's book on my iPhone and ended up having to move to my computer because my iPhone went dead.
Got it.
And I don't read that many, but when I do, I get really sucked in.
Yeah. And my wife, she'll read her books from her phone as well. So what I'm getting at is, listen, it doesn't matter if you're like, I like to read physical books. Behind me, I've got a ton of physical books. I've got a bookshelf here. I've got a bookshelf downstairs with physical books. I like to dog ear them. I like to make marks in them. But I know that there's millions and tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of folks who embrace reading their books from their phone. My wife is one of them. Every night, she's reading a book on her phone. Now, does that mean that I'm going to ignore that market, right? So same with you, right? You know that your children, your grandchildren probably read physical books. You've read physical books to them. But there's this new emerging marketplace that will only go in and consume books from their tablet or their phone. And you're smart enough to capture that. I love the fact that you're doing that there. All right. So anyone that's watching this and you're kind of stuck in your head that a children's book won't sell on a tablet, Mike is proving you wrong there. Totally.
It does. And I'm getting a lot of page reads on the illustrated books too.
Are you enlisting your books in KU, Kindle Unlimited?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah. The first one I kept out of it at the beginning while I was promoting it, but as soon as I was done giving it away, I put it into KDP Select, you bet.
You did. Hey, Mike, this has been amazing right here. You know, I've gotten a lot of ideas from you just in the last 45 minutes here or so. This was supposed to be a 30-minute interview here. You're going to be back for KCF Live. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions there. But then, more importantly, you have an entire presentation that you've put together to share with everyone there. And then Mike and I are working on something super special that we're going to keep under wraps for the entire Kindle Cashflow community. But if you want to hear more about what we're working on, you should, what do we have them type in the comments? Let's have them type more Michael. That's it. And more Michael, right? It's that simple. So if you want to hear about like this top secret project that we're working on, that only those people who are showing interest will be given first dibs to, type in more Michael below. Hey, Mike, I'm going to let you close this out, man. What else do you have on children's books that you feel like you should share with anyone that's watching this who may not know about how profitable these things are?
Well, I mean, what I'm doing without Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So that should give you an idea.
There you go. He's killing this thing without Facebook ads. He's got a huge audience that he's built up. He's got rabid fans that is it rabid fans or rabid fans?
I think it's rabid.
Rabid fans. He's
crazy.
He doesn't
crazy
have
fans.
Right. He doesn't have this walking dead legion of fans that are zombied out, right? That are after him. But he's got this fan base that, loves his content, loves his books so much that, he's getting emails that are asking him to send out signed copies of his books. He's got people who are emailing him saying, hey, maybe I'm not on your list anymore. Can you make sure that I'm subscribed to this thing? Because I don't want to miss anything. And these are not just content-driven emails that he's sending out. He's sending out sales emails, which is what I do as well. 99.9% of my emails that I send out are emails driven to get the sale. Because I found out that if people are going to unsubscribe, they're going to unsubscribe even if you send out content emails. And that was breaking my heart. Right? So I'm giving you content and you're still unsubscribing. But then when I send the sales email out, you don't unsubscribe. Like, that's one of the hardest things to figure out there. So, Mike, this is amazing. We'll see you at KCF Live. Remember, type in more Michael below if you want to find out about this top secret children's books project that we're working on. We're going to share this with everyone who shows that they're interested. The other thing is, in closing, Mike, remember, guys, children's books it's a piece of intellectual property that you'll always have. Like, once you go in and you publish them in the right way, it's something that you own forever. You look at someone like Dr. Seuss. The guy is long dead and gone now, right? But his estate, I was just reading something about some of the top earning deceased celebrities, and they had his name on this list. And the amount of money that his estate makes, this is like winning the lotto here, right? You never know, like, which one of your books are going to really take off and can just do big things. So There you go. All right, Mike. Hey, we appreciate your time. Remember, more Michael below. You see Michael at KCF Live. If you don't have your ticket, go in and grab it right now by going to kcflive.com. And we'll see you in just a couple of days.
All right.
Easy. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Ty.